Worship, passion, and zeal. They're all good things as long as they remain in accordance and alignment with Yahweh's instructions. As 1 Samuel 15:22 reminds us, has Yahweh as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of Yahweh? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed the fat of rams. And so, friend, we must be careful that we don't allow our zeal, our passion, our desires to override the clear instruction of Yahweh's teachings in Torah. This new cart, friend, it brought serious disaster. And this brings us to our next point, the consequences of choosing new carts. And so the celebration here, it quickly turned tragic when one man, Uzzah, reached out and touched the ark, revealing the cost of ignoring Yahweh's command. And so let's look at the sudden judgment here that came on Uzzah. So let's go to 2 Samuel chapter 6, verse 6, where it says, when they came to Nachon's threshing floor, Uzzah reached out to the ark of Elohim and took hold of it because the oxen had stumbled. Then Yahweh's anger burned against Uzzah, and Elohim struck him dead on the spot for his irreverence, and he died there next to the ark of Elohim. And so while moving the ark on this unsanctioned new cart, if you will, these oxen, they stumble, and this man Uzzah reaches out and places his hand on the ark to stabilize it. Now, there's a part of me, and this isn't in the scripture, but there's a part of me that wonders if this wasn't a God bump, if you will, if this didn't happen purposely as a way for Yahweh to get their attention. And so there's a couple of things here that are worth taking the time, I believe, to point out. First, who is this man Uzzah, and why would he feel comfortable enough to reach out and touch the ark? So if we back up just a few verses, we'll see who this man Uzzah was. 2 Samuel chapter 6, verse 3. They set the ark of Elohim on a new cart and transported it from Abinadab's house, which was on the hill. Uzzah and Ahio, sons of Abinadab, so here we find out who he is, were guiding the cart. And there's a parallel verse to this that's found over in 1 Chronicles 13:7 as well. And this verse reveals Uzzah's identity. So he was Abinadab's son, and the ark had been kept in Abinadab's house after the Philistines had returned it. So look at 1 Samuel 7:1. So the men of Kiriath Yarim came for the ark of Yahweh and took it to Abinadab's house on the hill. They consecrated his son Eleazar to take care of it. And so now there is a debate as to how long the ark was actually in Abinadab's house. Some say 20 years, some say as long as a century. Either way, we know for sure it was there at least 20 years. And Uzzah would have been raised in that home and in that environment around the ark. And so I believe this gives us some insight into why Uzzah would have felt comfortable enough to have reached out and placed his hand on the ark when even the priests weren't allowed to touch this Ark of the Covenant. He was consistently exposed to the ark over the past 2 decades, and so prolonged familiarity has the potential to diminish respect and reverence. And so this observation, I think, may help us to explain why Uzzah felt sufficiently at ease to reach out and touch the Ark of the Covenant. And I think we must be very careful with becoming too familiar with the presence and the holy things of Yahweh. In fact, the scripture gives this warning in Ezekiel 22:26, her priests do violence to my instruction and profane my holy things. They make no distinction between the holy and the common, and they do not explain the difference between the clean and the unclean. They disregard my Sabbaths, and I am profaned among them. And the result is seen in Ezekiel 22:31, where he says, so I have poured out my indignation on them and consumed them with the fire of my fury. I have brought their actions down on their own heads. And so, friend, this is the declaration of the Master Yahweh. And so, Uzzah's intent, it was good, but Yahweh's instructions and teachings warned against touching the ark, as we've already pointed out in Numbers chapter 4, verse 15. And so Yahweh's holiness, friend, it demands obedience. And our position in relation to the ark and in relation to his presence, it should always be one of reverence and honor. And the lesson that I believe we can take away from this is that good intentions does not excuse ignoring Yahweh's commands, teachings, and instructions for how we are to worship him and how we are to approach him.